Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So tonight we're going to talk about an idea. It's a very commonly held idea. We think we may want to examine it a little bit. Because the idea is that the GOP, the grand old party, well, they will always support the troops. They will back the troops no matter what. The Republicans will back the troops. But is there any truth to that? I mean, we hear it all the time, but is there any truth to that? I mean, sure, sometimes. I mean, they make a spectacle about it occasionally. Y'all remember that incident in Africa? U.S. service people out there on what we would just say, let's just call it an unpublicized operation. They weren't supposed to be out there overnight, but they were. Pretty bad planning on the whole thing. They had no air support. And it started to go bad. When it first started, it wasn't a huge deal. Just a few opposition fighters on motorcycles. And they pushed them back past the burning building into that massive onslaught. Fighting lasted hours. And when it was over, they were stripped and left there in the dirt. Then there were hearings about it, right? No, there weren't. Right now, I imagine you probably think I'm talking about Benghazi. I'm not. I'm talking about the Tongo ambush. The what? Exactly. Very similar scenarios. Extremely similar scenarios. But one got hearings. Closed door hearings. Sham hearings, I guess, is what we would call them today. The other one, well, I think, what was it? What was the president accused of saying? They know what they signed up for. He knew what he signed up for, something like that. One got turned into a circus. The other one got nothing. The difference is who was in power. Tongo happened under Trump. Benghazi happened under Obama. Today, there was a bipartisan bill. Would have helped women veterans. And it had support, but all of a sudden the Republicans wanted to add some amendments to it there at the end. And Democrats weren't having it. So the Republicans stormed out, walked out without voting, because they don't actually care about the veterans it would have helped. They wanted to politicize it. This was something everybody supported. And understand, the amendments that they wanted to add, from where I'm sitting, they probably something need to be talked about. But do you care so little about U.S. veterans that you would risk upending the whole thing because you can't get everything you want? Sounds a little crazy to me. But they did create that whistleblower protection office there in the VA, which, as we have come to find out, does the exact opposite. Didn't protect whistleblowers. In fact, their names were not shielded. And they suffered repercussions because they talked about it. Because the truth is, they don't care about the treatment of veterans. That's not something they care about. What they care about is making it look like they did something. So they wanted to stop those stories from coming out. Sounds a lot like what's going on the national stage right now. But this was just in the VA. I actually remember that whole little ceremony that Trump put on when he did this, because it was his campaign promise. He was going to fix the VA. Nope, all he did was shut them up so we couldn't hear about it. Don't actually fix the problems. You know, they took money from DOD to build that stupid wall apparently taking money from foreign governments and renting the troops out like they're Ryder trucks. Stab our allies and our friends in the back. Commander-in-Chief does. And then the Republicans in Congress come along and grab the knife and go hide it for him. Make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. And then today, Lieutenant Colonel, Purple Heart recipient, he's called a spy, working with the NSC. And they had the gall to try to slander him and libel him because his testimony is going to be damaging to the president. Just like the Whistleblower Protection Office. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about veterans. They don't care about national security. They care about appearances. And they're going to slander and libel a man who gave decades of his life to this country. All to protect Trump. The funny thing about calling him a spy is that he was actually able to pass the background checks that Trump's team couldn't. Anyway. So, is it true? I don't know. Recent actions seem to suggest otherwise. Maybe they don't really support the troops. Maybe that's not the party for the veterans. You know, aside from that, the only other thing veterans seem to universally care about are gun rights. And the reality is that in 3 years, President Trump has placed more restrictions on firearms than Obama did in 8. I mean, what did Obama do? Expanded concealed carry to national parks and put a bunch of surplus 1911s on the market? Gasp! Yeah, he's the gun grabber everybody made him out to be. And then you got Trump. Has his attorney general wandering Capitol Hill trying to find out what kind of gun control they can pass. Maybe you should stop listening to the talking points and actually look at what they do. Anyway, that's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.